Harihi Om. Om Gananan Tva Ganapati Gumhavamahe Kavyo Kavinamupamashravastamo Jyeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspatha Anashunvanno Diviseda Sadhanam Om Mahaganapataye Namaha Prano Devi Saraswati Vajebhirvajinibati Dhinama Mitrayavatho Ganeshaya Namaha Saraswatyai Namaha Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Om Jnananandamayo Devam Nirmalar Patikhatrudhim Adharam Sarva Vidyanam Hayagrivam Yasyat Varada Vakratyaya Parishatya Parashatham Vignam Nignam Ti Satatam Vishwashremam Tamashraye Gurud Brahma Gurud Vishnu Gurud Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Sarvalokanam Bisaje Bavaroginaha Nidaye Sarva Vidyanam Sri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Brahadishwaraya Namaha Om Sahanao Bhavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahavidyam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Om Partaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavatha Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gatitham Purana Munina Madhya Mahabharate Advaitam Ratavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashaadhyayinim Ambhatvam Manushandadami Bhagavad Gita Bhavad Veshinim Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Krishna Yarpanamastu Yada Sharanam Nasti. Sai Ram, Namaskar, Vanakkam, Vandanam. Welcome to week 3 of the series Key Lessons or Key Learnings from the wonderful Ithihasa called Mahabharata. So, as I mentioned in the first week, right, there are two Ithihasas that the entire Hinduism is founded upon. One is Mahabharata, the other is Ramayana. Ramayana, Mahabharata. Ramayana, 7th avatar of Lord Vishnu, Sri Rama. And Mahabharata, the 8th avatar of Lord Vishnu, which is Krishna. Now, whenever there is a decline in moral servitude or righteousness, there's a divine assurance that the Lord will incarnate from age to age in order to relinquish that deficit. So what we are looking at is the key lessons that can be learned from all the things that happened in all these Ithihasas. Ithihasa comes from the two-root Sanskrit words, Ithihasam. Ithihasam, that means this is how it actually happened, right? That's what Ithihasa means. Ithihasam, that means this is how it actually happened. So there is no question about whether it actually happened or not. It is. Even when I spoke about the Ramayana, I made mention of certain clear evidence of the existence that this actually had taken place, at that time. And similarly, Mahabharata also has taken place, right? So both works are magnificent in their own account to the extent of their own depth, right? So the point is for us to take some of these lessons and inculcate it into our daily lives so that we also improve and learn from all this, what we should be doing and what we should not be doing. The lessons that, the main characters in Ramayana taught us, the main characters in Mahabharata, which we will now be looking at, from week 3 to week 11. We start this week with the Kauravas, and then next week we look at Karna, and then Ashwatthama, then Bhishmacharya. A lot of people get confused with Bhishma and Bhima, right? Because of the similarity in the sound, but they're completely different individuals. Bhishmacharya or Pitamaha. Then we look at Duryodhana, then we look at Dhritarashtra, right? The father of the 100 Kauravas. So here I'll be talking to you about leadership, right? Leadership means also parenting, right? Parents, the kind of values and morals they lay down actually molds the children in many ways. So Dhritarashtra, then we look at Arjuna, then we look at Shakuni. Shakuni represents Maya, and Maya is all over the world. All around us, Maya. So we need to be, attentive to the things around us in terms of its energy and in terms of its value, right? Good value, bad value, good energy, bad energy, good vibrations, bad vibrations. So we look at Shakuni. And finally, we look at Dharmaraja, which is Yudhishthira, right? Eldest among the Pandavas. Well, actually, when I talk to you about Karna next week, right? We'll discover that Karna is actually the firstborn of the Pandavas, right? But because of certain events, which again I'll be going through next week, Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadeva became the Pancha Pandavas, the 5 Pandava brothers. Only on the battlefield, when he was almost nearing his death, he finally was given the opportunity, to seek forgiveness of Karna to the Pandavas, at which point in time, Kunti also said, he is my firstborn, and so on and so forth. And finally, in week 12, we look at everything collectively in the form of a summary or consolidation, which would be a brief session on my part, and then I'll open the floor to questions and answers. Right. So hopefully by that time you would have learned something and you would have developed a deeper and a better understanding of, what the Mahabharata actually stands for. When you move away from the story, if you stick to the story, you'll never get the lessons. If you move away from the story and you focus on the lessons, then you've got the essence of the Mahabharata, right? So if you look at a fruit, you'll never get the juice, right? But once you squeeze the fruit and get the juice, the fruit becomes worthless, right? So similarly, the story is only, the drama behind the lessons. When you get the lessons, you're not really interested or continue to be interested in the drama as such. So let me start the Kauravas with some historical facts, right? Firstly, the term Kaurava comes from Kururava. Kuru was a great legendary king in India, right? Just like we had, Dasharatha, the Surya Vamsa, we had Kuru in the Chandra Vamsa. Like that, he was a great king, and from him came the descendants. So Kururavas over time became Kaurava, right? And it is usually within the context of Mahabharata, it is used to refer to, obviously, King Dhritarashtra, right? The Kaurava, of course, that includes his wife Gandhari, and of course his 100 sons, right? Among which most of you would be familiar with the name of Duryodhana being the eldest, Dushasana, Vikarna, I'll talk about Vikarna shortly, and Chitrasena is the 4 of the most well-known characters, right? Of the 4, Duryodhana is most known, and of course Dushasana is next after Duryodhana, so he is also mentioned in several parts, especially when it comes to the humiliation of Draupadi in the court, right, of Dhritarashtra. If you look at the earlier editions of the Mahabharata, and I'm not talking about, stuff from Google or stuff from Wikipedia, that kind of, nonsense. I'm talking from actual almanacs, which have been original translation from the actual works, where you'd find them in proper libraries, right? That also talks about a sister among the Kauravas. They also had one sister. She was called Dushala, and a half brother called Yuyutsu, although they are not mentioned very much. But for the purpose of history, it's 101, right? 100 brothers, and then one sister, Dushala, and at some other point, one half brother called Yuyutsu. Okay. Now, within the context of the Mahabharata, the term Kaurava can be looked at the historical or the broader approach, or the current within the facts of Mahabharata, the more narrower approach. The wider meaning is Kauravas means all the descendants from Kuru. Now, this also includes, both the, Dhritarashtra and Pandu and their children collectively. So Kauravas, the broader meaning, also includes the Pandavas, who are all descendants from the Kuru. But the narrower meaning, and the meaning which is a contraction within the aspect of Mahabharata, is that Kaurava only means the sons of Dhritarashtra, the children of Dhritarashtra, and that excludes the Pandu's sons, which are the five Pandava brothers, or the Pancha Pandavas. So you need to have that understanding, right? The broader is Kuru dynasty includes, the Kauravas and the Pandavas and all the descendants. But within the narrow or the contextual application of the term Kaurava, it only reflects and relates and applies to the 100 Kaurava brothers, and also the father, Dhritarashtra, and his wife, Gandhari. So let me talk about Gandhari a little bit, right? Gandhari was the daughter of King Shaubala. And he was the king of Gandhar, which is, I'm sure most of you would have heard of Kandahar in Afghanistan, right? So if you go back and flip the pages of history, going back to the times of Mahabharata, at that time it was, an Hindu kingdom, and Shaubala was the king of Gandhar. Therefore, she is called Gandhari, princess of Gandhar. So yes, modern days, Gandhar over a period of time became Kandahar, right? Kandahar, as you know, I think it's the capital of Afghanistan, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, she was married to Dhritarashtra, okay? When the match was made and the match was arranged, she also came to find out that Dhritarashtra was blind from birth. So she decided to also blind herself by tying a piece of cloth over her eyes so that she could live the same life that her husband is living, right? And on the day of the marriage, Vedas was there, and Rishi Vedas Acharya was there. He gave the blessings, and he says, be a mother of 100 sons, he blessed her like that. And she was, Gandhari was also a very pious lady, and she was also a worshipper of Lord Shiva, right? If you looked at some of the serials and you actually read the book, you will see that, on Mondays she used to offer prayers to Lord Shiva. And there's a Shivalinga within the palace of Hastinapur where she will go and pray. Right, so that is a bit of background on Gandhari. Now, Kunti gave birth to Yudhishthira. At the same time she gave birth, Gandhari was also pregnant. Both of them were pregnant. However, Gandhari had an unusually long pregnancy, right? And when Kunti gave birth to Yudhishthira, Gandhari became so frustrated that Kunti managed to give birth to Yudhishthira, and she was still, resultless. So she began to beat her womb, and she began beating until, a gray mass of flesh came out. a big flash came out. And there was no baby, it was just a mass flash there. So the point to note here is, among the descendants, right? Obviously, Kunti's son, Pandu's son, Yudhishthira was the firstborn. So clearly, if there is a question about who is to go onto the throne as the next king, it should be Yudhishthira on the basis of birth, right? This is the Rajaniti that I've been talking to you about the last couple of weeks. Rajaniti, that means follow the dharma of the throne. So Gandhari was not happy, and she saw that mass of flash, and she called out to Vedavyasa and said, you said that you blessed me with 100 sons. Now I challenge you to fulfill your blessings, right? You gave me a vrata. Now you fulfill that. So Vyasa took that, and through, when you want to go on the line of spirituality, there are three paths, right? Mantrahinam, through the mantras, Yantrahinam, through the worship of yantras, and Tantrahinam, through tantras or tantric approach. And if you look at my YouTube, I have given one session, about 1 hour, 15, 20 minutes, purely on yantra, mantra, and tantra. So if you're interested in that, you can go. So using his tantric knowledge, Vyasa then divided that mass flesh into 100 and buried it in an earthen pot, right? And said, do not touch this for a year, right? And then, of course, Gandhari said, I also want a daughter. So he took one of that and he divided that into two. So there was 101. And from there, Dushala was born as well. The first, of course, what his instructions were followed to the T. And a year later, they went to open the pots, and out came these 100 babies. The first one to come out was Duryodhana, right? Duryodhana means one who is hard to manage, hard to conquer, hard to rule. As you can see, his character was like that. And he was said to be an incarnation of a demon. The energy of a demon was in that baby, right? The demon was also called Kalika. Don't mistake this with the divine goddess Kali, right? This is a demon called Kalika. So when he was born, he was also born at not an auspicious hour, at a totally inauspicious hour. When you look at people's birth, you look at the muhurta, you look at the hora, you look at the, time, the place, the day, just to and get the readings correct for those of you who are that way inclined. So when he was born at that hour, Vidura and Bhishmacharya advised Dhritarashtra and Gandhari to abandon the child, said, no, this child is going to bring doom. Let's, abandon the child. Don't have him here. He will bring certain death and destruction upon, the entire Kaurava clan. This Vidura and Bhishmacharya, Pitama, who have some foresight in these areas, they told Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, but Dhritarashtra and Gandhari's love was truly blind. This is my firstborn. How can I do that? No, I will not. I will keep him. I will keep him and I will raise him, regardless of what you have said. So sometimes, people come and give us warnings in different ways. And it's up to our own intellect, right? Yatho buddhi, tatho siddhi, yatho siddhi, tatho manushya karana, right? So when you use your buddhi, you develop siddhi, right? Without siddhi, man is pretty much, left to his own resources. But Dhritarashtra and Gandhari said, no, we want, right? So here, the lesson is attachment, bandha, How much of attachment should you have in your life? Mine, mamaha, mine. My husband, my wife, my son, my daughter, my house, my car. Only temporarily it is yours. After you go, someone else will become the owner. Whether it is your house, your car, your children, everybody will go, right? So this is where I would like to repeat something that I've said in Bhajagovindam, where my Dhyana Guru Adi Shankaracharya said, on the quality of attachment. He said, everybody has attachment through every stage of their life. Balastavat krida sakta hai, tarunastavat taruni sakta hai, Vriddastavat chintasakta parame brahmane kopi na sakta. He said, as a child, balastavat krida sakta, you're attached to only playthings, toys, everything, right? Tarunastavat taruni sakta. As a teenager and as a young man, you are attracted to the opposite sex. Vriddastavat chintasakta. As you grow old, you're attached to your thoughts. What is going to happen to these? Who is going to marry my son? Who's going to marry my daughter? Where are they going to live? Blah, 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 blah. Vriddastavat chinta saktaha. Chinta is your thoughts. You're attached to your thoughts. So Shankara says, Parame Brahmane kopi na saktaha. Alas, to the one Parabrahma, nobody is attached. Nobody is attached. Right? And then in another verse, he says, and it is quite pertinent here, and you should reflect on it. He asks one of the scholars in the court where he was. He said, Kate kantaha, kaste putraha, samsarava ayavativa chitraha, kasyatvamaha, tutayahata, tattvam chintaya tadida brahata. Says, Kate kanta, kaste putraha. Who is your wife? Who is your son? Samsaro ayam mativa vichitraha. This life, this samsara is very strange indeed. Kasyatvam ka, kutaha yahataha. Of whom are you? From where did you come? Where did you hail from? Think about these things, because these are the fundamental truths. You come alone, you go alone. You come with nothing, you will go with nothing. So why in this interim so much of fuss, so much of mind, mamaha? Mamaha in Sanskrit means mind. That's why when you pray to God and you say their names, you say namaha at the end, isn't it? The word namaha means na mamaha, not mine, not mine. Every name. Om Shri Durgai Namaha, Om Shri Prakrutye Namaha, Prakrutye Namaha. Namaha means you're saying not mine, not mine, not mine. But that's only during prayer. After prayer, everything is mine. Right? So next time when you say namaha, understand that you're saying na mamaha, not mine, not mine, not mine. Whatever is happening is your doing. So everything that you have given me is yours. Why am I claiming a temporary ownership? Right? Anyway, so the point here to note now at this point is, why was Kunti and Gandhari actually competing to have a son? Well, the answer is pretty clear, isn't it? Right? Because the firstborn will inherit the throne. So clearly, Yudhishthira was the firstborn, right? When Duryodhana was born, Bhima was born on the same day, right? So they are same old, same age. And then, after Duryodhana's birth, on Kunti's side, Arjuna was born, then Nakula and Sahadeva were born. Of course, Kunti had a specific gift from the Rishi whom she looked after. I think last week I told you that she would be blessed with specific mantra. If she looks at anything and recites the mantra, that particular divine energy will come and bless her with a child. So when she was very young, first thing she looked at was the sun. And she wanted to try out the mantra just to, eradicate her doubt. So she looked at the sun, she recited the mantra, Surya Dev came and gave her Karna. But because she was so young and she wasn't married, and it's going to cause a big problem in the kingdom, in the palace with her father, the king. So she put it in a basket and sent it away. Then, of course, she got married to Pandu, and then she used, she called on Dharmaraja, which is why Yudhishthira was born. And then she called Vayu, Bhima. And then she called Indra, so Arjuna. And then she called the Ashwini twins, Nakula and Sahadeva. So the 5 were born through that way. But of course, the 100 Kauravas, I told you how they were born. Right? Duryodhana's name, I told you, it means one who is difficult to manage. You cannot conquer him. You cannot conquer him means conquer his mental attitude, his speech, and his physical actions. One who is unconquerable, in his being, in his persona, right? So that's the reason. But despite the fact that Yudhishthira was the firstborn, he should be the, Yuvaraja, crown prince. But he was not allowed to be that because Duryodhana wanted to be that. Duryodhana's argument is, well, my father is the king, therefore I should be the next king because I am the eldest born of that. So he refused to look beyond that argument, and that was one of the reasons for the war, right? And they were always when I say they, I mean the Kauravas were always envious of the Pandavas, right? Because of all the goodness, and they get a lot of good name. They get a lot of blessings from all the rishis who come there, and so on and so forth. So they always develop this feeling of jealousy, envy, hatred. Among them was, of course, the main antagonist in this whole thing, which is the Duryodhana, right? So the 100 Kauravas, of course, were brought up with great love and affection, and they were given everything by Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, right? But at the same time, his brother's 5 sons, Dhritarashtra's brother Pandu had 5 sons, the Pancha Pandavas. They were not given everything in the same way the Kaurava children were given, right? The 100 sons were given. So, but they never complained. They just used everything in the way that's supposed to use, and they were happy with that. So again, here, you need to think that if you're happy with what you have, then you have very, very little problems in life. But even if you've got the best things and you're not happy, then there'll be problems laden in your lives. So again, there's a choice there, right? And they all were trained since they were young. They were sent to the Gurukula by the Asthana Acharya, which is Guru Dronacharya. So he taught the 100 Kaurava brothers, and he also taught the Panchapandavas. Of course, among the pupils, among the Shishyas, he also taught his own son Ashwatthama, right? I think I'm covering him in week 5. I'll talk about him in week 5. Now, there's always a question, and of course, Karna was also sent to study from Dronacharya. And later, of course, he left and he went and joined Guru Parashurama, right? Parashurama is, of course, one of the 7 Saptarishis, still ruling, in the terms of energy. So there's always a question here, who is greater? Is it Karna among the students of Dronacharya, or is it Arjuna, right? Of course, both were equally, apt and adept at their archery. The Gandharva, the skills were unmatched. But there was another person who always wanted to join. When he wanted to join, he said he couldn't join because he was the son of a cowherd, right? And therefore, this is only for Kshatriyas, warriors, only Kshatriyas can join. And his name was Ekalavya. Ekalavya then decided to make a clay persona of Guru Dronacharya, and he went to his little hut. He made this clay and he put fruits and whatnot, like as though he's offering, Guru Dakshina. And every day he used to go to the camp, stay outside the camp and watch what Drona is teaching Arjuna, what he's teaching Karna. And then he used to go back and he used to practice. Every day he used to do this, right? Whenever he gets a chance, he used to, day and night, doesn't matter. He used to practice. And he became such a fantastic archer, right? Once when a competition was held in the camp, in the Gurukula, and Dronacharya said to Arjuna and Karna, who can shoot that star, right? You are greater among the two, right? Now, so when they were preparing to shoot, suddenly an arrow came from inside the forest and it hit the star. And everybody was shocked. Where is this arrow coming from? And then Durana said, come on, let's go to where the direction of the arrow had come from. And when they went, they found Ekalavya's hut. They found this clay statue of Dronacharya. And then they found Ekalavya, who was practicing behind the hut. And then Dronacharya went to him and said, "Who are you? And why have you got my statue there?" So he said, I was not allowed to come and learn from you. So I used to stand at a distance and observe what you teach. And I used to come here and practice. But I made you my Atma Guru. And that is why this clay statue is here. And at that instant, Drona knew that this Ekalavya was far more superior than Arjuna and Karna. And he also knew that if he allowed Ekalavya to continue, then the whole event is going to completely change, because, he also had his son there. And of course, he is bound by his promise to Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana for allowing him to become the Ashtana Guru, for giving him, all those, luxuries of life, because he is the Guru. So he could not allow Ekalavya to continue. So he said, "Okay, that's very fine. I'm very happy that you've learned all this. But what Guru Dakshina are you going to offer me? Because clearly you said I'm your Guru, but I haven't received any Dakshina from you. So what are you offering me?" And Ekalavya bowed down and he said, "Guru, whatever you ask, if it's within my capacity, I will give you." And Guru Dronacharya said, "Give me your right thumb." The thumb is the most important thing, right? Without the thumb, you cannot pull the arrow, you cannot use the bow. And without a question, this is Guru Dharma, right? Ekalavya took a knife, cut his thumb. And there ends the story of Ekalavya. Otherwise, in the entire Mahabharata, there would be no superior archer more better than Ekalavya. So that was his part there. Just to say that you may have the best teacher, right? Yet you may not be as superior as someone who focuses with single-pointed devotion and does, Guru Vandana in his mind and practices the same thing. That person, even though without personal tutelage, can be far more superior than you who have that benefit of the teaching. The Guru is there present and he is teaching you. So many things they learned from Dronacharya, but Duryodhana was a student of Balarama, who's Krishna's elder brother, right? As was Bhima. And they learned mace fighting, Gadam, the one that Vishnu holds as one of his, I think his left bottom hand holds a Gadam or a mace. So that only Balarama is known in the art of mace fighting, and both of them learned it, and both of them were equally, powerful in that. And they were best students of Balarama. But Duryodhana was far too ambitious and greedy. And of course, he had a great guy assisting him called Shakuni. So Shakuni kept feeding Duryodhana, narcissistic pride and, evil thoughts and things like that. And he said, "You don't worry, whatever happens, I will make you the king. I will not rest until this is achieved." So he was the prime player behind the scenes, creating all the problems, right? Bhishma, on the other hand, he was Pitama, he was Bhishmacharya, was a grand uncle or grand, in a fatherly state. He preferred the Pandavas because of their merit, their dharmic approach, their skills, their knowledge, and because they were righteous, right? Righteousness was seen as the most important aspect of someone who is going to become a king. Whereas the Kauravas were, there were lots of falsity, they were greedy, they were, envious, they had a lot of hatred. So all the qualities that is not necessary for a king, the Kauravas had. So Bhishmacharya always preferred the Pandavas. But because he was working for Dhritarashtra in the Hastinapura kingdom, he is bound by his dharma of loyalty to the king and obviously to the king's elder son, Duryodhana, right? But the rivalry has been from the time they were young kids, right? And there'll be one or two tales where, what's his name? Duryodhana tried to kill Bhima because Bhima was very powerful. Bhima is the son of Vayu, right? And so he moves like the wind. And he's, extremely strong, very, very, powerful character. But, so they had grown with this feeling of envious, feeling of hatred, feeling of wanting to get rid of them. So they nurtured a desire to kill the Pandavas from a very early age. And that was happening through many, many things. And of course, also through the, one of the things they did was in the attempts to kill Pandavas, there was one sacrificial event that was to be held. And Duryodhana said, okay, as a mark of respect, I will build you a palace. And he built a palace, but he built it of lacquer because he wanted to, once the Pandavas settled in there, he wanted to burn them, together with their mother. But Vidura had heard about this plan of Duryodhana, and he told Yudhishthira and the Pandava brothers, you can't stay there because this is what Duryodhana plans to do. And therefore they had dug a tunnel. So when the palace was set on fire, here, I'm just, fast forwarding so that you get a little bit of background. And of course they escaped that. And then they were hiding because they know these guys were trying to kill them. And the only time that Duryodhana actually found out the Pandavas were alive is at the Draupadi's Swayamvara, where the competition was held for the best man to take the hand of King Drupada. Drupada, whose daughter was Draupadi. Right? Draupadi was not born. She came out of a sacrificial fire, the yajna. Right? The first thing to come out was, and Drishtyadumya, his son. So, because Drupada had for many, many years wanted to have a son, so he was advised to hold this big yajna, and he held this yajna, and the first one to come out was Draupadi. So he never really liked her because he wanted a son, and a daughter came. So the relationship was not very good. But anyway, right? She came out of fire, so she is fiery, and she's got the quality of that, sanctity and purity of fire. So one of the arguments that is put forth by scholars is that although she's married to the 5 Pandava brothers, every year to one brother she stays. When the end of one year comes and the beginning of another year is to start, where she's going to move in with another brother, she goes into the fire and comes out as purified. That is one of the scholarly arguments put forward, because fire will consume everything and bring it to one state of equanimity, complete annihilation, and you come out as brand new. Anything that is put in fire, that is why fire plays such an important role in the Hindu sampradaya. We have yajna, we have havan, we have arati, and we have different types of arati. It's fire. So fire is the only one that cannot be polluted by anything. Earth can be polluted, space can be polluted, water can be polluted, air can be polluted, space can be polluted, but fire cannot be polluted. So fire, she is born of fire. Right? So what happened was, of course, Arjuna won that competition, and Karna wanted to enter the competition. He was stopped because he was not born of a king, nor was he a Kshatriya. He was the son of a charioteer, who was Dhritarashtra's charioteer, was the one who found Karna. When I said Karna's mother put him in a basket and put him on the river. So it was found by this man who was the charioteer to Dhritarashtra. So he became the son of the, but that time, that's the time he became very, very close to Duryodhana, because Duryodhana said, no, let him participate, because he wanted someone, and Karna is very, very powerful, because remember, they all were the same Gurukula, right? And also he has gone to Parashurama, and he's got, all the other astras, like the Brahmastra, the Pashupatastra, Narayanastra, so on and so forth. Right? So Duryodhana said, no, I am now going to make him a king of one of my western states. So that's why one of Karna's name is Angaraja. He became a king, and as a result, he could then participate in the Swayamvara for Draupadi, right? Then, of course, to cut a long story short, Arjuna won the competition. And of course, he took Draupadi back, just to give you a bit of background. So, because some people say why she was married to 5 people, right? So Arjuna went back to the mother and said, Mom, look what I have won and brought back for you, right? The mother, who was not even looking as she was cooking, from there she shouted, whatever you brought, doesn't matter, you have to share with 5 brothers, your other brothers, sorry. Yeah. So the 5 brothers have to share it. And then she looked back, because those days, right, what you say, the word is your honor, and whatever you say comes true, like that. So also mother's word was not, put aside or put asunder. So the Pandavas were then given a small place to go and live, some barren land. But again, if you have the will and you have the way and the blessings of God and the grace of the divine, you can make anything out of nothing or something out of nothing. So they went to this place and they built a magnificent palace, even grander than Hastinapur, with the help of Vishwakarma, the divine architect, and Lord Indra. Therefore, the new place was called Indraprastha. Indraprastha, beautiful palace, beautiful land and all of that. And I'll tell you something interesting, right? Indraprastha at that time is now seen to be the New Delhi. So where New Delhi stands, if you go back through the pages of history, that is where Indraprastha was. Right? Again, very interesting. So another fact, that is going to support the fact that it actually took place, right? So when someone else is doing well, very few people can actually say, I'm very happy, may you be graced with continuity of these good blessings. Not Duryodhana. He could not stomach the endless prosperity and the growth of the Pandavas. And again, because everybody wanted to go from Hastinapur and resettle in Indraprastha, because it was such a great achievement by the Pandavas, and beautifully green lands, so it was so much more attractive than Hastinapur. So many of the citizens of Hastinapur wanted to go. And this, of course, did not go down well with Duryodhana, right? Also, at the, what we call the invocation ceremony of Indraprastha, the opening ceremony of the palace, everybody was invited. And because it was so beautiful, there were some parts which were magical, right? And then Duryodhana was attracted by that magic place. When he went, he actually fell into a pond in the middle of the court, where everybody was sat, and he was laughed upon, and he was mocked and humiliated. And that Draupadi also laughed at him at that point in time. So he became very, 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 very angered by this. And this always was playing, one day I will get you, Draupadi, and I will make all you fellows who laughed at me, cry in my midst. So that's the jealousy, the hatred bit, How much of jealousy, how much of hatred can you have, or should you have? The idea is, Krishna spoke about this when he was talking to Arjuna just before the battle began, the Kurukshetra battle. And he said, I think it is, chapter 2, where he's talking about envy, he's talking about greed. And Krishna is telling Arjuna, he said, there is enough in the whole world for everybody's need, but there isn't enough in the entire universe for one man's greed. And the Srimad Ramayana also says, Jimi pratilabha lobha adhikai. Lobha adhikai means if you satisfy desire, Jimi pratilabha lobha adhikai. If you satisfy desire, it leads to greed. Therefore, desire can never be eliminated by satisfying it. Desire can only be eliminated by completely relinquishing any kind of desire, right? And Srimad Bhagavatam also says, if one person, this is exactly what Krishna said, right? If one person was to get all the wealth, all the luxuries, and all the sensual objects in the world, that person's desire would still not be satisfied. Therefore, those intelligent people around them, you must know that the cause of misery is this desire. Therefore, what you should do, an intelligent person should renounce desire, right? Na duhyanti manapratim pumsa akama hastayate. An intelligent man, knowing that desire is fatal, should renounce desire. That's what it says, Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So the first plan of burning them in the palace didn't work. The second plan of giving them a barren land to make sure that they are not going to prosper also didn't work. And finally, through Shakuni, they came up with the plan, the dice plan, the playing of the dice thing, right? And of course, we know what happened there. Shakuni, of course, had some Siddhic powers, and he made the dice from the bones of his dead father. So he could control, the dice, he could make those things turn at his will. And of course, he told Duryodhana, said, you invite Yudhishthira and say you are going to play dice with him just to make, relations good. And then when Yudhishthira, of course, is Rajanidhi, when another king calls you, you have to go and respond equally, right? So he went, and at that time, Duryodhana said, I'm not feeling very well. My uncle Shakuni will play on my behalf. Even at that time, Yudhishthira could have said, no, I will play with you. If you're not well, I'll come back another time and play. But Yudhishthira I've given my word that I'll come and play, so I will play, right? And then, of course, we know what happened. Because of this trickery and this magic, he lost everything one by one, and then he lost his 4 brothers, and he lost himself, and then, of course, he lost dear Draupadi, right? Everyone was lost. So now is the time for Duryodhana to take revenge on Draupadi and the 5 brothers who are now their slaves, because you're sold through the game. And he calls his most beloved younger brother Dushasana to drag Draupadi in, and of course to derobe her. And of course, Krishna never lets you down, especially when you have, there are a couple of stories here, once they were at the river in Godavari, and Krishna cut his little finger, so it was bleeding. So Draupadi tore a part of a sari and wrapped it, right? So one of the stories is when she was being derobed, the little cloth that she gave became, the huge bundle that the sari was turning into. So whatever little thing you do for God with total, presence of mind and sacrifice, you will get the returns. Yeah, this is the dharmic promise. The good that you do comes back to you. Likewise, karma says the bad that you do also comes back to you, right? And what you do is not just physical, right? Thinking also produces karmic reactions. Speaking also produces karmic reactions. And of course, physical actions, no doubt, will produce karmic reactions. And of course, Krishna completely saved her because, Dushasana was tired, and even the other fellows who tried could not, because the sari was just growing and growing, and Draupadi was in a state of, I think I said to you, she asked Krishna later why he didn't come as soon as she called him. And I said to you, I can't remember the first time of the first session or the second session last week, that Krishna said, why did you call me, to come from Vrindavan? And then you said Madhura Bhasha, Vrindavanavasa. So when you call me to come from there, I have to go there and come from there. You should have said Hridayatin Vasa. Instantly I would have materialized. So many people who pray to God, right, put God in a specific place and keep him there, right? So if I ask you, where can you find the great Srinivasa, Venkatesha, Balaji, you will tell me it is Tirupati. Where can I find the great Subramanya? You'll say Palani or Kathirkama, Oh, if he does not live in your heart, his presence in a geographical location of fame really doesn't matter. It really doesn't make a difference. And then Draupadi is a clear example of this, right? So anyway, as a result of this, the Kauravas successfully managed to get the Pandavas into 12 years of exile and 1 year of incognito survival. That means they cannot be seen. The moment they are seen, then the 12 years will repeat. Because according to Duryodhana and Shakuni, if one person sees them, then the 12 years will repeat. So every time one person sees them in the 13th year, it will repeat. So forever they can be banished like that. That plan worked. And then, of course, Duryodhana took over Indraprastha, and they were happy-go-lucky, right? And of course, they managed to cut a long story short, right? They managed to actually live the 12 years. And in the 13th year, they took on a disguise, because they obviously cannot be seen in their own personal self. So they went to the Virata kingdom, and they dressed as different people, so people could not recognize them. So Arjuna was teaching dancing, so he became like he dressed up in disguise as a lady, and each of the brothers took on a different thing, a different disguise, so nobody could actually recognize them. But the point is, somebody saw them on the last day, but they said the time is gone, because they were looking at sunrise, sunset. So the last day of the 13th year, after sunset, they were spotted by someone, and that really didn't matter, because the day is gone, that day is finished. But Duryodhana said, no, if somebody has seen you, that means you must. And so he refused to give them the Indraprastha back. He refused to give them any piece of land, nothing. And so they said, well, if you're not going to, then, there is no chance. We'll have to engage in war. And that was the background to which the war was started. It all started because the Kauravas could not adhere to Dharma or comply with the demands of, proper behavior on the part of Pandavas. So Bhima, the second brother in the Pandava line, he said, I will kill all of you. And indeed, he actually killed all the 100 Kaurava brothers. The last to be killed was, of course, Duryodhana, right? And of course, he also told Dushasana, when Dushasana was pulling Draupadi's sari in the court, he said, I will not let you go until I personally kill you and take your blood and wash Draupadi's hair, right? And that actually happened. If you see the movie, or if you see the series on TV, and if you actually read, the original text, or the original translation of the original text, and you will see the only person when Bhima killed, he cried, was Vikarna, because Vikarna was a very dharmic. Although he was a Kaurava brother, he was the only one among the 100 who had a good sense of dharma. So even him in the court, he was telling his father, can you stop this, please? But all the big guys were there. Dronacharya was there, Bhishmacharya was there, Karna was there. Nobody said anything, because they felt bound by their duty to the king and country, to Duryodhana. So they never said. So there is a query here, right? What you should know is, should you keep quiet? Because somebody is giving you gifts or alms or whatever when they are doing something adharmic, or should you say something out? This is the thing that Krishna asked Dronacharya, Krishna asked Bhishmacharya, and Krishna asked Karna. What dharmic action are you all talking about? When, Draupadi was being derobed, none of you said anything. The only one who said something was Vikarna and Vidura. And of course, they were ignored, right? So that's the background to the war, right? Of course, and then the Kurukshetra war came for 18 days. The first day of the Kurukshetra war, we had the gift of Bhagavad Gita. And on the 18th day of the Kurukshetra war, we had the gift of Vishnu Sahasranama, right? This is what Yudhishthira received from Bhishmacharya. And of course, the day that Bhishmacharya died, it's still celebrated today, in this day and time, as Bhishma Ekadasi. So the war began, and of course, Bhima was killing one by one, right? But Duryodhana was not afraid, because he had got Krishna's army. Krishna called both of them, said, you're going to fight, right? You don't want to give, right? You want to fight, so let me give you a choice. Either you can have me, I'm just driving your chariot, or you can have my, 18 Akshauhini army, all completely, masters in the art of warfare. Now, of course, Duryodhana, without without a second of hesitation, said, I'll take your army. And Arjuna said, Lord, if you are sitting and driving me, what else do I need? And then that was the, the relationship. And of course, the first day he could not fight because all he saw was, all these cousins he grew up with. Guru Dronacharya was his, Kula Guru. And then Bhishmacharya, all Vyasacharya, all of them he saw. And he said, no, I can't fight them. They're all mine. Mama Bandaha, he's saying. Krishna, that's when he stops everything, becomes timeless. Time stops moving. And then he begins his Gita Upadesha to Arjuna. And that's where we get the Bhagavad Gita from, right? Again, I've completely spoken about the 18 chapters in Bhagavad Gita. It's also on the YouTube channel. Krishna comes because he has clearly given that, what's the word? That assurance he has given. Yada yada hi dharmasya glahinit bhavati bharata abhyutthanam dharmasya tathatmanam sajamyaham paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya chatuskridam dharma samstavanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So if he is driving Arjuna's chariot, then where else can be victory? Yato satyam tato Krishna tato jayam. Where there is Krishna, there is only victory. But unfortunately, when your intelligence is clouded by all this, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, mamada, matsya, ahamkara, ego, you cannot see this. Intelligence is dark. Ajnana rules. So when the darkness is removed and light comes, jnana begins to work, right? So the war started, and then every day something, people used to die. On both sides, they had casualties, right? Now, as far as the Kauravas are concerned, everybody had gone, right? Dushasana was killed and Bhima did what he said he will do. And everybody who saw that was really fearful. And at that time, after Dushasana, only Duryodhana was left, right? He was the only one of, 199 had been killed, all by Bhima. And then his mother was very worried. And she, through her years and years and years of tapasya and praying to Lord Shiva, she had accumulated some Siddhic Shakti powers, right? And she was told by Vyasa, if you want to give that power to Duryodhana, ask him to come. And when you open your eyes and see him, he should be, as he was when he was born. That means, completely nude. And when you look at him, you will, the light from the power from your vision or absence of vision for so many years will empower him and make him invincible. So Duryodhana heard that his mother wants to see him. So he was going and he was, had a bath in the river and he was walking and he didn't have any clothes on. And Krishna, of course, knew what was happening. And the ever resourceful Krishna came in the path of Duryodhana. He was laughing at him and he says, how can you go to the palace and see your mother naked? At least cover yourself with a leaf so that, you cover yourself, your manhood, for example, right? So he didn't like, he said, if I can laugh at you, everybody can laugh at you, right? You are supposed to be the king. So Lord Krishna used his intelligence, but he says, I'm not forcing you at the end of the day. If you want to be ridiculed, laughed at and mocked, that is your choice. But I'm suggesting that you cover yourself with something. So what Duryodhana did, he fell for that intelligent suggestion. He took a banana leaf and he just covered that part, just below his waist. Yeah. And then, of course, Gandhari, when he went to in front of the mother, he said, Mama, I'm here. Mom, I'm here. And she opened it and completely it empowered him, except the part where he was covered, right? So from knee down and waist up, he was invincible. Okay. Now, then what happened? They went and fought. And of course, Duryodhana seemed to be invincible and undefeatable. And Bhima was losing, right? Krishna then suggested to Bhima through some, gesture, said, hit him below the waist. Hit him below the waist. Now, in the art of warfare, in the art of just war, you cannot hit someone below the waist, right? That is like against the law of the war. But Krishna is telling Bhima, hit him there, because that is where he is weak. Everywhere else, you can't touch him because he is far more powerful than you because of Gandharish Siddhik Shakti, right? Now, again, Bhima hits him and, of course, ends his life there. And this was considered by some people to be adharmic. And the same thing, and when I spoke about Ramayana and I spoke about Vali, Rama killing Vali, Rama was not fighting Vali, right? But Rama was behind the tree when he shot the arrow that killed Vali. So the question of whether, something is dharmic or adharmic depends on the intention of the person who's doing the act. And Krishna has said, if your intention to do something which appears to be adharmic, but the purpose of that is to protect dharma, then it's fine. So that is the justification given by, Krishna. And of course, from Sri Rama's thing, right? Then, of course, the war ended and, the Pandavas ruled for 35 years and then they decided to go spiritual life. So they decided, they put Arjuna's son is, I can't remember his name now. Anyway, Arjuna's grandson, okay? Son was, anyway, I'll get his name. They made him the king, and then, of course, they went away, and then, of course, one by one, as they were climbing, the Himalayas, some said, they disappeared in Kailash. Some say, they were climbing the mountains and, slowly they ascended, with the exception of Yudhishthira. When I do Yudhishthira, I'll tell you how he ended his, life on earth, his mortal self. But, that is the Kauravas in a nutshell. But I want to talk about some of the lessons or fundamental lessons that we can learn from the Kauravas, okay? First one is greed and arrogance. So in life, never be greedy, never be arrogant, always be humble, right? And always follow dharma. Importance of dharma is the second thing, right? Dharmo rakshati rakshitaha. The moment you do dharma, that very dharma that you do comes back to protect you. Dharmo rakshita rakshitaha. And then what Adi Shankara said, show me your friends and I will tell you your character, right? Show me your friends and I will tell you your character. That's what Adi Shankara said. So bad company will influence you in a bad way. There is no doubt about that. Then you have loyalty and friendship, right? There are many people who are loyal as a result of friendship. It's both in both camps, right? In the Pandava camp, they had people like that. And also in the Kaurava camp, like Karna, Drona, Bhishma, all of them were completely loyal because of the attachment they had. The other thing is karma, consequences of your actions. 100% it will take place. Maybe not now, maybe not tomorrow, but 100% it will take place. Karma is like a boomerang. Whatever you throw, right, whether it's your thoughts, your words, or your actions, it comes back to you with astounding accuracy. No escape. Sometimes people call me and say, Guruji, these fellows, they are doing so much of bad, but still they're having a good life. I said, for now. For now. I said, what man can do, if man is feeling so powerful because he can do something, imagine if you leave it to the power of God, right? And what you do is nothing, right? You are so powerful, stop tsunami. You can't, isn't it? You're so powerful, stop hurricane. You can't, isn't it? You're so powerful, stop earthquake. You can't, isn't it? So when nature and God do something, you are totally powerless. So whatever happens, you say, Yatho karmo tatho bhava. Yes, as you do the karma, so you will experience the consequences. And another lesson is importance of forgiveness and reconciliation. See, so Duryodhana had so many opportunities to just say, okay, let's forget it. Let's work together. Let's live in harmony. No, there was no forgiveness. There was no reconciliation. In the end, destruction and doom. So that is a lesson for you and me to learn, right? And as a result of that particular point that I just mentioned, you should always focus on solutions, not on the problems. When you focus on the solution, the problem diminishes. When you focus on the problem, you will not find the solution. That is the main lesson you learn from this particular thing. Understand? So I will stop there. Next week, we go into Karna, another great character in the epic of Mahabharata, right? Anyada sharanam nasti tvameva sharanam mamaha tasmat karunya bhavena raksha maheshwaraha. Harihi Om Tat Sat.